Phoenix Rising by Michael Anastas. For an hour, the others waited, until, after darkness had fallen, Merlin and Ash finally crashed into the truck, with an unexpected reason for coming in. "Back so soon?" Misty said sarcastically. "It's Vileplume mating season!" Ash shouted, and gasped for breath. "What's wrong with that?" Merlin hacked and coughed, until he finally said, "Vileplume's odor isn't just for self-defense. Females use it to attract a mate." Ash caught his breath and smiled. "Kind of like women and perfume, huh?" Both Misty and Jessie leapt at Ash and took turns stomping on him. After a minute, Merlin got tired of watching and knocked both of them out. "We're not here to fight!" he yelled at the three non-moving heaps on the floor. He rolled his eyes and turned towards Darius. "It's been an hour, so the engine's probably cooled down by now." Darius nodded and took his place in the driver's seat. "Brock, help me clean up?" Brock smiled, nodded, and dragged Misty into the back of the trailer, which was the bedroom. The engine started, and the rain increased. When they had gotten the three battlegoers in bed, Merlin slumped down in one of the chairs, and our canine sat obediently beside him. Brock put his feet up on the couch and stretched out his arms. "Off to Vermilion City for purchase of heavy firearms," he said with a sigh. "God, I hope my kids never hear this part of the story." He closed his eyes and went to sleep. Ninetails came in from the back room on her hind legs and found Merlin in his chair. "All three of them are fast asleep," she reported, "though I find it hard to believe they knocked each other out. Actually, I'm responsible for two of them." Ninetails went down on all fours and climbed up into the chair beside Merlin's. "I guess I shouldn't be surprised." She was silent for a moment. "Merlin, do you really think they can be any help to us? They helped destroy the second Mew clone. That takes a lot of effort." "I know, but even so, don't they worry you? The way they attacked Ash for telling a joke? The way some of them smile at the ideas of what kind of weapons Surge has to offer?" Merlin shrugged. "Of course I'm worried. They've all got a long way to go." He bowed his head in shame and threw up his hands. "But who else is there? Anyone who could actually help us wouldn't help us. And why? Because they hate our guts for being better than them. Ash is our only hope, and you know that better than I do. And I know Ash will grow up to be just like you. I'm worried about the people that came with him. Misty, who takes everything personally. Brock, who can't resist a pretty girl, even if she had a gun pointed at him. Jessie, who has visions of firearms dancing through her head. I know, but like I said before, these are desperate times." He folded his hands in front of him. "I guess we'll just have to wait and hope for the best." Ninetails climbed down from her chair and onto Merlin's lap. "Can't we do more than pray? I'm giving all my secrets away for free. Maybe Ash will learn faster than I did." Ninetails smiled and licked Merlin's cheek. "Kiss for good luck." Professor Oak sobered within the next day, and when he learned of the full event from his brother, he immediately set out for the cemetery, where Ash's grave still stood its place. "In all my years, I never would have believed a Pokemon could have the power to give life to someone," he said as he hurried down the street. "Who knows what that kid is capable of?" The arch of the cemetery appeared before him. He stopped there and caught his breath, staring in awe at the tombstones, which sat front row of the cemetery. "Somewhere, there's an empty grave, where my greatest student God be praised if Ash is alive! He opened the gate and walked down the dirt path of the graveyard. The sun was just barely on the horizon, and much of the land was still under the darkness of night. Professor Oak found Ash's grave before daybreak. The casket had been pulled away, and the grave had been covered with a heavy cement block. Oak smiled and proclaimed his lucky star until the sun rose, but when the light came, he found its presence unpleasant, for in the light, he could see the graffiti written in dark red letters at the base of the stone. Ash Ketchum will return, so saith the Lord of Madness. Ash Ketchum dreamt on rare occasions, but on this night, the visions were clear to his unconscious mind. In his mind, Ash recalled the event which he thought to have been forgotten, and when the truth came through, he wished it had remained dead in his mind. He dreamt of his battle with the Mewtwo clone, the day he was killed. He remembered every detail up until when he was killed. Mew 3, as it was called, stood 30 feet tall, holding in its hand what had once been a telephone pole, now sufficed as its easy method of bashing and smashing. Ash and Sabrina threw everything they had at the huge creature, but their Pokémon were cast aside like toys. It stared down at them with hard eyes, and Ash sullenly remembered what happened next. He and Sabrina had been thrown up against the wall of her gym, and they had both been crushed when it came down upon them. But that didn't happen. Instead, at the very last second, Ash found himself behind the huge creature, where he witnessed the death of Sabrina from up close. Then, before it, stood Merlin Durai, standing 30 feet tall himself, dressed in samurai armor, his sword drawn and waiting in his left hand. Mew 3 charged Merlin, and with a single slash of the sword, he reduced it to dust. Merlin sheathed his sword, his armor faded, and he was reduced to normal height. He knelt before Ash and pulled him to his feet. "Keep a firm hold and a clean blade," he said with a smile. "Heroes live their lives in glory, but when death becomes them, one must take the fallen sword and continue the battle." Still smiling, Merlin faded away. On the ground rested a finely carved, beautifully polished katana, exactly the right size for Ash. He hefted the sword, and his entire body was filled with power. "Pika! Pika!" As Ash's eyes came to focus, Pikachu leapt off his head, and Arcanine tackled him. Misty told me later on that Ash had actually flown out of bed, smashing his head so hard against the top that a rise appeared on the mattress above him. "You all right?" asked Misty, eyes wide. "You looked like you were having a nightmare." Ash blinked in the morning light. "A nightmare? It must have been. Pikachu saw you tossing in your sleep and... Pikachu?" He looked up at his little electric rodent and remembered the surge of power the sword had given him in his dream. Pikachu. I was worried. Sorry." "Yeah, same here." Ash hobbled to his feet, and Ninetales came in, holding a tray of coffee mugs. "Well, good morning to you, Ash," she said with a sigh. "Or should I say good afternoon?" "Afternoon?" Ash leapt from his spot on the floor and crouched down before the little clock which sat on the nightstand between the two bunks. 4:31. He'd slept through half the day. Ninetales came up behind him and placed the tray down on the stand. "We made coffee, but it doesn't look like you need it." "Have some anyway!" shouted Brock from the next room. "It's better than sex!" Misty called back. "How would you know? You've never even gotten a kiss!" Brock stumbled in through the door and pointed at her. "I take serious offense to that!" "Will both of you shut your traps?" shouted Ninetales. Both of them turned, and sat innocently across from each other on opposite sides of the room. Ninetails smiled and turned back towards Ash. I don't know if it's as good as Brock says it is, but I know Darius's pot is better than the rest. Try it. She held one of the mugs in front of Ash, and he took it timidly. Thank you, Ninetails, he said in a shaky voice as he took the cup. Don't be rude, said Brock. Ninetails smiled. I don't mind being called Ninetails, but for the future, my name is Faith. Faith? Said Ash in doubt. It's my real name, but you can call me Ninetails if you want. Trust me, it's really good. Ash stared down at the black liquid in his mug as Faith brought the tray over to Misty and to Brock. 2 sugars, 2 creams, just the way you like it. Brock accepted his coffee with a big smile on his face. You're so nice to me. Faith returned the smile, but gave a worried look in Ash's direction. His mug was empty, and his eyes were wide. How was it? Ash's trembling hand placed his mug on the table. Superb! I've never tasted anything like this in my life. It's powerful. Would you like a refill? Ash held up his cup. Yeah, please. Beam me for all it's worth. Faith laughed as she accepted Ash's empty mug. That's a new one. I'll have to tell Merlin that one. She paced out of the room in her upright position, and, probably by accident, one of her tails brushed Brock's cheeks, turning them red. He smiled and sank into the chair. She's the woman of my dreams, he said in his gaga for the girly voice. Misty clenched her teeth together. She's a Pokémon! Brock's chair reclined, and his coffee spilled in his lap. Ah! He wiped his pants on his shirt and looked up, beet red in the face. Oh, yeah. You forgot! You're so desperate to get into a woman's pants that you'll even take a Pokémon for your wife. My wife? Brock fell back in his seat. Dear God, he said, looking down into his half-empty cup. What has this stuff done to me? In the next room, where the sink, stove, and dishwasher were placed, Merlin was preparing another pot of Darius's specially made coffee, while he worked up front at the wheel, and Jessie washed yesterday's dishes in the sink. Meowth loitered around, skipping from the edge of the sink to a chair in the corner, just now adjusting to the idea that Merlin could be trusted. Faith came in with a tray in hand and reported what she'd heard when the door was closed. I told you not to go overboard, said Merlin with a sigh. As if Mike doesn't have it. Leave him out of this, Faith protested. He's your trainer. He taught you how to talk, didn't he? True. Well, don't you think it's bad enough for Mike's first Pokémon to get noticed by some of the guys out there? Faith tossed the mug into the sink, sending a few suds into Jessie's hair. What's that got to do with it? If there are humans out there with as low of standards that they'd find one of us attractive, well, we all know what kind of people those are. I don't see what makes her pretty, said Meowth. I think she's homely. Don't make me fire spin you, whispered Faith, loud enough for him to hear her. Jessie finished scrubbing the last dish and fished around amongst the suds in search of the new mug. Do they even know about Surge yet? Merlin started the pot. They should notice the truck anytime soon. He shook his head and smiled to himself. Who'd have thought Surge would loan us a tank? And come with us for the journey, shouted Darius from the driver's seat. And bring a truck for the ride, laughed Merlin as he took Jessie's place at the sink. Brock, step away from the door. The door fell open, and Brock fell to the floor, followed by Misty and Ash, all in a pile before them. Is it true? Asked Misty. Surge is in a truck behind us, with a tank in the cargo hold? Brock looked up at Faith. And you think I'm a lowlife? So what's our next stop? Asked Ash. Merlin's hand stopped working. Do you really want to know? Yeah, I'd like to. Merlin took a deep breath. Saffron City. One of the Phoenix trainers lives there. Faith's trainer, to be exact. He just narrowly passed the final tests, but he's proven to be quite a fighter in the past few years. Don't get me wrong, he's not half as good as you are, though. Merlin's words went right through him. Saffron City. The place in his dream. The place he had died.